Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CODESYS Feature Briefing, March 2024. My name is Hilmar Panzer.
I'm Martin Decker.
Good to have you with us, and thanks for the interest in CODESYS, our product. Let's start with a short introduction presentation. Right at the beginning, I would like to draw your attention to the next date. That will be in autumn, October 16. Please save this date in your diary. This feature briefing will be recorded and will be available to you or your colleagues afterwards. The presentations have been pre-recorded, so the times given in the agenda on the next slides are fairly accurate. You can again send us any questions you may have. As we have changed the tool, this is now slightly different. You can either ask questions via the YouTube chat. However, this requires your own YouTube channel and it is also publicly visible. Alternatively, you have the option of sending us an email at featurebriefing@codesys.com. This is not public. Please always give us the context so that we know what your question relates to. We will either answer you directly or, especially if we think this is a question of general interest, we will answer in plenary at the end of the event. If we need more time to answer your questions, we will write to you in the next few days. Now here's the agenda. I won't read it out in detail. The first half is primarily about our development environment and tools, and the second part will be about runtime and features. The exception is that the last presentation is on CODESYS Go, our new engineering platform, which is still under development. A note on upcoming releases: Service Pack 20 was technically released yesterday and uploaded to the various platforms. There will also be patches on CODESYS Essentials throughout the year, normally on a monthly base, and these will typically be on Service Pack 19 and especially 20. However, we can create patches for older versions on customer request. Then there are numerous releases on the add-ons each month. Last year, there were over 100 in total. On our website, we publish which components are scheduled for new versions and when. Also on our homepage, you will find information on the life cycle of our products. We have worked intensively on defining the life cycle over the past year and have defined phases for our products. It starts with the definition and development phase. For you as a customer, the product phase, in which the product is available to you, is of particular interest. Depending on its maturity, there are regular improvements and bug fixes. At the beginning, with young products, more often. With major products, the frequency generally decreases. If it becomes apparent that the product cannot be continued for much longer, it is moved to the service phase. Reasons for this may be economic considerations, like because a product is less in demand, or practical ones, for example because the appropriate hardware is no longer available. In the service phase, we no longer maintain the product on our own initiative, but only make adjustments and changes at the customer's request and for a fee. During this time, it is only available to existing customers who are instructed not to use it in new projects and to look for alternative solutions. Finally, at the end of the service phase, the product is discontinued. That means it is taken off the market. I also wanted to draw your attention to the adaptation of the company name in libraries and devices, where still our old name appears in some cases. It's high time we replaced it. However, this is not as easy as you might imagine, because the company name was also used to uniquely identify the files, and the system has not yet been able to recognize that a new version of, for example, Library X with company name CODESYS is the legitimate successor of the old version of Library X with the manufacturer name 3S Smart Software Solutions. We first had to prepare for this, and we are now changing this with the individual releases of the add-ons. There is nothing for you as a user to do unless you create your own libraries. There you have to update the reference to the new vendor name. So much for the general introduction. Enjoy the upcoming presentations.
After this short introduction, let's get straight into the actual core of the feature briefing, the presentations on the various CODESYS topics that will take about an hour and a half now. In the description of the video, you can find the corresponding agenda and also the email address to which you can send your question in case you don't want to or cannot use the live chat on YouTube. And with this said, we wish you a lot of fun and many interesting insights with the following presentations. Have fun.
In the engineering system, there is a lifecycle change that affects the child applications. We no longer recommend this concept because it has not worked reliably enough and has led to increased complexity, which has had a negative impact on maintainability and the development of new features. For this reason, no new child applications can be created from Service Pack 20 onwards. Existing projects with child applications will continue to work for the time being. However, we recommend using separate runtime system instances instead if you require strict application separation, or if this is not absolutely necessary, you should merge the child application into the main application. There have been several updates to the IEC 61131 programming language editors, which contain minor improvements and otherwise mainly bug fixes. In particular, I should go into detail about our new ladder editor. I have already presented the motivation in the last feature briefings, and last summer we were able to release the first version 0.9 and give it to selected beta customers for testing. In February, we released version 1.0, which is feature complete apart from scripting and project localizations. You can either add this version to a CODESYS installation based on Service Pack 19 via the installer, or you simply use Service Pack 20, which includes this new editor in the setup. The old combined ladder and function block diagram is not affected. It still works. Ladder POUs can be converted from the old to the new one. For function block diagrams, you must continue to use the existing editor. For ladder, you have the choice, and we recommend the following procedure. Use the new ladder editor for new projects, and also if you are making major changes to existing projects. If you do not plan to make any changes to existing implementations, there is no need to port them to the new editor, at least not from our side. Service Pack 20 will include a Sandbox Lite option. Historically, all CODESYS installations on one computer share the repositories for devices, libraries, and so on. On the one hand, this is good because it saves disk space. On the other hand, it has the disadvantage that the installations can influence each other. If we install a new CODESYS version, new artifacts, thus libraries, devices, and so on, are added to the repositories. This can have effects on projects used with the older versions, if we do not prevent this by the strict following of certain rules. We want to simplify this in the future by offering a choice during the custom installation whether PC global repositories should be used or local ones that exclude cross-influences on existing installations. A larger sandbox variant is planned for this summer. The goal here is that a CODESYS installation can be easily and quickly archived, restored, copied to other PCs, or made available to other users. Of course, without cross-influence on other existing installations. And like all classic installations, the sandboxes will be managed by our installer. The deployment server is the counterpart to the installer. It provides setups and packages to the installer and perhaps other artifacts in the future. You will probably not be familiar with the name deployment server, as the only existing instance was operated in the background by CODESYS. However, since December, we offer a customizable version for automation platform customers who produce their own CODESYS variant and add-ons, and this will give them the option of using the installer's update mechanism for deploying their own packages. Your feedback on our products is very important to us. So we have created a small add-on called CODESYS Usage Analysis, which we will roll out with Service Pack 20. It will ask you a maximum of 3 questions every now and then about your experience with CODESYS and your expectations. Your answers will be forwarded to us completely anonymously. You can, of course, disable this feature. But I hope and ask you to support us with your feedback. This will also influence our future decisions. We plan to also publish results from this on suitable occasions like the feature briefing. Last but not least, a note on the new version of our scripting interface, which was actually planned for the end of last year. Until now, our scripting was based on Python 2.7. The new version, which had to be postponed to the second half of this year, will support Python 3.4 in parallel. Speaking of scripting, in addition to some other improvements, our trace editor is getting a scripting interface. This will enable you to automatically create and start a trace and save measurements to a file. The release is already planned for April.
Thank you very much, Hilmar Panzer. And now, to the next presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Markus Haberstock and I work in the documentation department. In my presentation today, I show you the latest innovations in the area of documentation and CODESYS help. Be excited.
Today I'm going to show you news on 2 topics. First, the improvements to the search function in the help portal, and then about our new feature, the offline help. First of all, the improvements to the search. In the future, we will display the publication of the help page with the search results. This will look something like this. This will help you to find the information you are looking for more quickly. Furthermore, we are currently optimizing the search for terms that are written with underscores, spaces, together or in camel case. Here are a few examples. These terms have not yet been found sufficiently. Searching for these terms will be significantly improved in the future. Now to the offline help. The offline help will be available for Service Pack 20. The offline help will then be offered for installation on the start page of the help portal. A click on the download button will start the installation. The installation is carried out by the CODESYS installer and normally takes about 1 minute. Here now in much shorter time. Once you have installed the offline help, it is available in the menu. The start page of the offline help is presented like the help portal. All publications are included in the offline help with the exception of the libraries. The info button on the top right gives you an overview about the publications included. It is of course possible to search the offline help. You can also call up the help pages context sensitively from the CODESYS user interface. The language of the offline help can be selected by the language selector. You can switch between the installed language and English. The following languages are available for installation. The integration of additional help content, for example from add-on packages, is possible. If there are packages with old CHM files in your CODESYS installation, you can display these help pages using the additional help menu command. This means you still have access to help content that has not yet been converted to HTML5. These were the new features from the documentation.
Thank you very much, Markus Haberstock. And now, to the next presentation.
Hello, my name is Bernhard Reiter. As product manager, I will inform you about our current developments in the area of the compiler, the professional developer edition, and also our communication protocols.
In the following presentation, I want to give an overview of new features in the compiler and also topics related to it. First of all, I want to talk about the option to enable UTF-8 encoding for strings used in the application. This is not actually a new option because it was already introduced with Service Pack 18. But back then it was disabled by default when creating projects because not every feature in CODESYS was already able to support this new encoding option. But developers could activate it themselves explicitly for projects if they were sure that the subset of features from CODESYS or their own libraries which were used were already capable of handling this option. Now with Service Pack 20, we had the time to implement support in all features in CODESYS for this option, and so now when creating new projects, it is enabled by default. Of course, if you have already an existing project which you open and upgrade to Service Pack 20, this option will remain unchanged. So if it was disabled for your project, then it will also still stay disabled when you open it with Service Pack 20. Another feature more related to monitoring and debugging is flow control in CODESYS. Flow control allows you to open a POW and see the changes of values like in monitoring, but the actual values as they change during the execution of the POW in a certain task. Usually a POW is only called in exactly one task, and CODESYS is able to determine automatically in which context or in the context of which task the flow control should be executed. But there are cases when a POW is called in more than one task, for example, or when calling the POW through pointers or interface references, CODESYS is not able to determine this automatically. So for these cases, now there is a new pop-up which appears when you activate flow control initially, which asks you which task to use, and the default setting still is to let CODESYS determine this automatically. Once the flow control is running, you will then be able to see which of the available tasks is actually used for flow control, and if for some reason CODESYS should select the wrong task, you have the possibility to actively change this yourself and select another task for execution of flow control. Also, we did a lot of work on flow control in the runtime system of CODESYS, and here specifically the support of multicore was basically redesigned. Using flow control in the context of multicore had two issues. One issue was that rare deadlocks could occur, which of course crashed basically the application at the runtime. But also if no crashes occurred, there was still the problem that the overall execution performance of the IC task was inhibited by flow control, and also sporadically occurring jitters were possible on high priority tasks, which were also badly influencing the real-time behavior of tasks. All these issues should now be fixed with Service Pack 20. The last feature I want to talk about are the memory tools and the core dump in CODESYS. To give you a quick introduction, the memory tools are an advanced debugging tool allowing to actually look into to take a detailed and low-level view into the memory of the application. So whenever flow control and classical breakpoints are not enough for your analysis, then the memory tools allow a detailed view into the IC memory and, for example, to see memory corruptions which are not easy to detect otherwise. Also, it contains a number of rules which can be executed automatically to check your application for well-known issues which might lead to strange behavior or crashings. So here you can see in the bottom part of the screenshots how the memory tools actually allow you to look into your application memory. And on the top you can see a feature so-called memory scan, which allows you to search for certain values or memory patterns inside your application. Often so detailed analysis or advanced debugging do not happen while on site with a running machine, but are often delayed to a later point in time, or even an expert. And a core dump from your IC application is a very useful tool for this, which allows post-mortem analysis of issues in applications. So far, the memory tools were not usable in combination with a core dump, but of course, this is very useful to do and was often requested. And we will release new versions of the core dump add-on and also the memory tools add-on in the second quarter, which now enables the interoperability of these two debugging tools. I have news regarding the static analysis and the version control add-ons of the Professional Developer Edition. Regarding the static analysis, here the major version upgrade to the version 5.0 is planned for the second quarter this year. To be more precise, in the end of April. The reason for this delay is mostly because new features in the static analysis also depend on new features which we introduced with Service Pack 20 for the possibility of better analysis and rule reporting. So the delay is basically caused because we now have to wait for Service Pack 20 to be released so that we can then release the new version of the static analysis add-on. Another quick feature I want to show in this context is that we now have implemented a lot more quick fixes for static analysis rules. So as you can see in the screenshot, this basically means that if for a certain code position the static analysis reports a rule violation, you have the possibility to then execute some automated refactoring of your code to fix this rule violation. In this case, for example, for this case statement, you might add a missing else branch automatically, or the quick fix is basically available for most rules is the possibility to disable this check on this position or globally. This saves the developer a lot of time because for many rules, simple solutions are possible and can be done automatically, and this is another important part of not only giving immediate feedback to the developer, but also to support him as best as possible during application development. Other news I have regarding the CODESYS Subversion add-on is that we will be discontinuing this add-on. This will not happen immediately. We will make a final release also in the second quarter this year, which will on the one hand contain fixes for many security issues, which are basically fixed by upgrading our Subversion add-on to using OpenSSL version 3. But also we checked and fixed a lot of other major bugs which we will release as part of this version. After that, we will continue to support CODESYS Subversion for another 3 years. We will not add new features anymore, but we will continue to provide security issues and critical bug fixes. After these 3 years, which will be 2027, it will no longer be available for new CODESYS versions. Obviously, CODESYS Git can be used as an alternative to Subversion already today. But of course, as mentioned, you have now 3 years time to start migrating your existing workflows and projects to alternative solutions. Regarding CODESYS Git, I also have news. But first, let me talk about CODESYS Go. As you know, this is a development we started, which tries to improve on many aspects of the CODESYS version 3. One of them is the switch from a binary storage for project files to a more open file-based storage and especially human-readable storage of the CODESYS projects. So the big goal regarding this topic is that it uses plain text files and, as mentioned, human-readable files. Of course, this option will not be supported for all kinds of objects supported by CODESYS from the beginning. The focus here will be on objects present in all kinds of projects initially, which means that POUs implemented in structured text are the main target for the first version, to have an as easily and as human readable storage as possible. This text file based storage will be exportable and importable in CODESYS version 3, and this enables new use cases for this kind of project storage. So for the one use case, of course, obviously, it is about the possibility to exchange projects with CODESYS Go, but also other use cases will be a lot easier to implement. With this, for example, the automatic generation of projects by using external scripting tools without having to use some intermediate format like PLC OpenXML, for example. But also, and this is the most important part for us in the Professional Developer Edition, is that it also will provide a foundation for future Git versions in the Professional Developer Edition. Right now, the biggest drawback of our Git integration is that the storage or the project storage it creates is not human readable, not easily to read, to compare, and to merge in external tools. For various reasons, merging still should be done in CODESYS in the future as well, but at least the parts about human readable and comparable in external tools will then be supported a lot better and will be a lot easier based on the CODESYS Go project storage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bernhard Reiter. And now to the next presentation.
Hello, my name is Ulf Schuenemann. I'm Product Manager for Application Technology.
I will brief you on the developments in application products. First, we have released the OPC UA Client API. I give you an update on the CODESYS simulation interface and an outlook on the application composer and the future library landscape. We released the CODESYS OPC UA Client API in this month. It is a free add-on for PLCs with the CODESYS OPC UA Client feature and encapsulates the corresponding runtime component library. It offers a high-level API for access to UA servers based on the common behavior model. It features connection management to the server and access to variable nodes on the server, basic data types, structures, and arrays, using subscription or read and write commands. The client FBE manages the connection to an OPC UA server, the URL, the client name, authentication, security policy, timeout, asynchronous property for the replies from the server. The subscription FBE is a base FBE from which you derive to define your own set of server value subscriptions with mappings to IAC variables in the application. And the value set FBE is similar to derive from it for defining your own set of server value nodes with mappings to IAC variables, which then are used in read and write FBEs by which you trigger an exchange of a value set. Let's look behind the scenes. If you have a IAC structure with components like a string, a real value, and a datetime value, then you derive a function block from value set with a component structure element, and you define a description of this structure value with the single components, a string with the address of the string component and its size, the real value with its address, and the date time value with its address. And then you collect this in an array, in this case just one element, which contains this structure with its description and a definition of the node ID by which to find it on the server, and an encoding ID so that we can check that it is encoded the same way and defined the same way in the server and in the application here. CODESYS simulation interface will be released initially in September this year. It is an add-on with a workplace license for running CODESYS applications against machine simulations. This will go all automatically. You don't need any manual adaptation of the CODESYS code. What is working already is that we redirect the I/O signals from the Fieldbus to the simulation using OPC UA PubSub, and we are investigating how to get the information model for the I/O signals into the OPC UA server for an easy import into the simulation model. The CODESYS OPC UA server seems to be missing something there, which we need. In the SPS fair this year, we will demonstrate the integration into 3 or more simulation tools. And we are still looking for a pilot CODESYS user who is using MATLAB simulate machine models. Next application composer will be released in November. It includes licensing improvements like license subscription via the store, not via sales, license for dongle and soft container, licensing in adapted IDEs with alternative license technology, and no more separate single license package. Furthermore, it includes performance improvements in the code generation and a preparation for composer modules without the full application composer. Like next year, we will release the persistence manager as a standalone add-on. Finally, about the library landscape. First, there's a discontinuation of the SMS service library, part of the CODESYS IoT libraries. It is in service phase now. This means end of support. There are only security patches and regression fixes. No further development, no functional bug fixes. It is not recommended anymore for new projects. It is marked as deprecated in the next IoT libraries version. Old projects can be used unchanged with new CODESYS versions. The final discontinuation will be 2 years later. It will be removed from the IIoT libraries and the help server. There will be no more regression tests and no more security patches. Then there are 6 CAA libraries which have a modern successor. The net-based services, the list and tree, async manager, segmented buffer manager, memory block manager, and behavior model. There will be a guideline for transition to the successors, and all CODESYS libraries will switch. The service phase will be entered in 2 years. They will be marked as deprecated. 2030, they will be completely discontinued and removed from the setup. You should switch your libraries and projects in time. The corresponding runtime components will be there for longer. There's no timeline yet for their discontinuation. Finally, there is part 2 of the CODESYS modularization, meaning that also libraries are factored out into add-ons within the setup. The advantage, they can have an independent release cycle, but there's no urgency and no timeline for this change. First, there will be the new string libraries. They have been released last year, and they are in the setup of SP20 now. And the CAA successor libraries, which I mentioned, they will be moved from the essentials into the add-ons of the setup. And the control loop library in the store will be moved to the setup as an add-on. And for further CAA libraries, there will be successors developed too, and they will be developed as add-ons in the setup from the first place. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ulf Schuenemann. And now to the next presentation. Hello, I'm Martin Decker. I'm the product manager for the CODESYS automation server. Let's start with some important and the most recent developments since the last feature briefing in October 2023. Of course, we'll also take a look at future developments and have a look at how we can benefit from those features. First of all, remote control. The requirement was to alter the execution of an application running on a PLC remotely. So for example, start it, stop it, reset it, without the necessity to use a CODESYS development system, to log into a PLC, to have a compatible project at hand. And it should also be possible to display applications that are already present on a PLC. For this purpose, we implemented functionality in the backend, added a lot of drop-downs, buttons, and so on the front end. So it's possible now to use any client with a browser to control the application remotely, which of course saves a lot of time, especially because you don't have to use a CODESYS development system, log into a PLC, and so on. In the web app, it looks as follows. First of all, you can see which application is available on the PLC. You have additional details on the application. In a second step, you can select the desired execution state of the application. So do you want to start it, stop it, or reset it? And we also link to the online help where we explain what reset warm, reset cold actually means. Once you execute it, you can double check what's actually done. So if that's what you actually want, if yes, you can execute it. And here we have some icons indicating, here the left one, which the current state of the application is, and the right one, what the desired state of the application is. Of course, that's not only possible for a single application, but also for multiple applications. If you select in the PLC list view a couple of PLCs, in this case 2, you get a listing of all available applications on those PLCs. For each application that you can then select the desired execution state and execute it again as seen before. Another feature we implemented is that it is now possible to remotely transfer files to a PLC from a client and vice versa using WebVisu. That's possible now for all runtime versions greater or equal to Service Pack 18. So it's possible now to remotely exchange files between a client and a PLC, and you can also make this very secure by using the runtime or the visualization user management. You can see an example here. You can find it on CODESYS Forge if you're interested in how such a project, such a Visu file transfer is realized in CODESYS. Just download it, have a look at it, and try it out yourself. A feature that was in parts already available was the possibility to replace a CODESYS Edge gateway. Another requirement was that it should also be possible to keep existing Edge gateways. That's possible now. It still can be done using the drop-down menu in the web app. That means you can now even more easily transfer a PLC from one location to another location whilst keeping both gateways available and functional. In the web app, you can simply use this edit button here. A new dialog pops open, select a new gateway in the drop-down menu, and that's all you have to do. A development that kept us quite busy last year and also this year was the edge communication rework. The requirement here was that we wanted to build a state-of-the-art communication service between the edge gateways in the field and the automation server in the cloud, which is more scalable and better maintainable. And for this reason, we decided to completely re-implement this service, which means that it's more stable now, and maybe even more important, that it's easier to extend it by new features now. So that's a benefit for both the users and us. So far, we had a look at the items on the left-hand side. I now want to give a short outlook on the file and recipe management on the CODESYS automation server on premises. hand in hand with the CODESYS manager. So first of all, the file and recipe management, which we're working on currently, the requirement was that it should be possible to remotely manage files on PLCs, or in other words, to manage files on remote PLCs, and then also use these files in the context of applications, for example. For this reason, we decided to have an extensive development package that is split up into 3 stages, development stages. In the first stage, we'll make it possible to transfer files to PLCs. In the second stage, it will be possible to store files on the automation server and use them for application deployment. So that means if you deploy an application to a PLC using the CODESYS automation server, you can check additional files that should also be deployed with this application. And this goes hand in hand with a central file management that will then be part of the automation server. And finally, of course, it will then also be in a third development stage possible to make backups and also restore those backups. The benefit, you can use those files, for example, for recipe management directly from the browser. And by using your own custom files, you can extend the range of possible solutions which you can realize with your applications, your PLCs, and the automation server. Another development is the CODESYS automation server and the CODESYS manager, which is kind of an ops tool for the automation server. So the requirement was that it should be possible to have control over the own infrastructure, over your own data. It should be possible to operate the automation server in an air-gapped environment with no connection to the internet, and also it should be possible to match compliance requests in a company. The solution is that we now will also offer a self-hosted CODESYS automation server, which makes it possible for you to have full control over the entire system on your own infrastructure, be more independent from third parties like, for example, cloud providers. And the automation server can also be connected without any internet connection, which sometimes might make sense, for example, if you want to connect your on-premises automation server to another site or location where you have some PLCs that should also be controlled with the automation server. That's it so far from my side. Thanks a lot. If you have any questions, just write an email to featurebriefing@codesys.com. Enjoy the rest of the feature briefing now. And now to the next presentation.
Hello, my name is Andreas Kehrer. I'm product manager for the runtime and safety products.
Today, I want to inform you about 4 major blocks for the CODESYS runtime part. The first one are the improvements with SP20. The second one is a prototype of the user management based off the PAM module on Linux. The third one is a prototype for Sys Ethernet under Linux based on XDP technology. And last but not least, I want to give you an update on our project of the independent release for the runtime system. Let's get started. First of all, about the improvements. First improvement is the system RTC interface. It is extended by a new interface function to retrieve the time zone information, which makes the handling of the real-time clock in IC much easier. The second one is an improvement of the file transfer on download. So especially for visualization with plenty of image files, this is improved and the download should be much faster with SP20. The next improvement is for the CMP log component. Now you have the possibility to set the log filter via the PLC shell. So while the runtime, the device is running, you can set a new log filter for diagnosis reason. So you can set a new filter and then you get. Last but not least, we had done an update of the OpenSSL component. We updated from version 1.1.1 to version 3.1.4. The reason for that is the end of life of that old version of the 1.x version, and we choose to go to version 3.x, which was the best choice from in our opinion. Let's come to the next topic, to the PAM module, or the user management based on PAM. What we did is we implemented a new user group backend based on PAM. So now you can connect the user management of the runtime system with the user management of your Linux or of your operating system. You have the same user management. And another benefit is that the PAM supports different ways to enroll user management. So for example, also the LDAP protocol. Let's come to the next topic, which is the sys Ethernet on the Linux. We have a prototype running using XDP, Express Data Path, and you can see on that picture that the XDP socket on the right side has the benefit that you can go directly to the kernel driver and you don't have to go to the whole Linux kernel networking stack. So the benefit is that it's much faster and the jitter is much lower than if you go through the whole kernel networking stack on the Linux. In addition to that, the kernel starting from version 6 supports zero copying. So you can directly copy your Ethernet messages into the NIC driver and then the driver directly sends the messages. So we expect a much better performance. So let's have a look to the measurements which we did. First of all, we had the measurement of the task jitter, and as you can see on an x86 based system with latest Linux and an RT preempt patch, we have a pretty good jitter on that system, only 2 microseconds in that measurement. And here you can see the measurements of the Ethernet frames. In the upper measurement, we have an interface with XDP. And what you can see is that the round trip time, so the send and receive time, is about 4 microseconds, which is pretty good and pretty stable. We have some higher values, but this is because we did not optimize the system to the end. So there are still room left to do more real-time optimizations on the systems. But the result is, from our point, very good. On the measurement below that, you can see a measurement without XDP, and here you can see that it's roughly double the time if we do not use XDP, and the times are not that stable, so you have often higher values, and jitter and CPU load influences the times much more than it does it with XDP. Yeah, that's for the XDP. And last but not least, the independent release cycle. About the concept, what do we do here? What we plan to do is we plan a release of the runtime system independent from the programming system. So it will have its own release cycle. It will have its own versioning based on the 4.x version scheme, which we have for all the add-ons. The benefit for our customers is that all the bug fixes, improvements, security fixes, and everything is automatically released with the next version. At the moment, it's always released with the next service pack, which is once a year. And only if we do a patch on a service pack, it can be faster than that. With the new release, it will be always with the next version. All we do and all the bug fixes we do will be released with the next version. Next thing that we do is we concentrate currently on the quality of our runtime system. We do a lot of bug fixes. We do a lot of test implementation to stabilize or to provide stable releases. Next is the release cycle itself. We plan to do a release every 2 to 3 months. So it will be around 4 to 5 releases per year with all the bug fixes and all the improvements and security fixes. Let's have a look to the milestone plan. In 2023, we did a pre-project. We did a lot of investigation and created infrastructure. Now our first milestone is to move to Git repository. Currently we are using SVN. In addition to that, we will provide an add-on with all the runtime related libraries. So the system libraries, syslibs, will be in our own package, not with the setup itself. In addition to that, the runtime system itself will come as an add-on. Then we come to the milestone 2, which is the parallel fast, where we have the SP19 branch still in SVN, and the development will be done in Git, and we will use feature branches for the development itself and integrate it back to the main branch, and then do a second step to integrate it in the bug fixes we want to patch on SP19. We integrate on the SVN branch. And finally, the third milestone is the release itself, the version 3.000, which will be in parallel or at the same time than the IDE release of 3.5 SP21. I want to inform you about two major information about our safety products. One is the CODESYS safety extension release 4.2.0.0, and the second is our new product CODESYS Virtual Safe Control SL. Let's start with the CODESYS safety extension and the status of the release version 4.2.0.0. First of all, as a reminder, since as Service Pack 17, the CODESYS is not one monolithic installation, but divided in several add-ons. We have a CODESYS Essential and a full bunch of add-ons, and 3 add-ons of it are safety critical. So it's the safety extension add-on, named SIL3 add-on in that picture, the Profinet add-on for the GSDML import, and the EtherCAT add-on for the easy file import for the safe devices. And the idea of our new approach is to not do one qualification for the whole set of add-ons and essential, but for everything separated. In the context of that project, we found out that the CODESYS Essentials itself is not safety critical, but we only have 3 safety critical add-ons. It's the SIL3 add-on, the Profinet, and the EtherCAT add-on. So we did a qualification, an offline tool qualification for those 3 add-ons, and we provided all the documents already to the TOE, and we received the LOB, and yeah, that is the current status of the qualification. About the feature set, with the new add-on version 4.2, we support 64-bit CODESYS, but that means also that the 32-bit support is discontinued. As a second, we have an option to run safe applications with no child application. By now, we always require a child application for the standard application to do this mapping of the safe communication data. This is not necessary anymore with the new version. And last but not least, we have less restrictive installation requirements. That means that we do not have a manifest file anymore. You can, since the add-ons itself are safe and do not have any safety requirements to CODESYS Essential and to any other add-on, you can, from functional safety point of view, combine any version of in that picture green or blue software component with the 3 safe add-ons. Of course, there are requirements, functional requirements. We have tested version and things like that. But from safety point of view, there is no limitation here. What's the status? Code close is planned for end of March, and the release is planned for end of April. Let's come to the new product, CODESYS Virtual Safe Control SL, and the software architecture of that product. The base of the product is the CODESYS Safety Runtime Toolkit, which we have released years ago. It's our standard safety runtime toolkit as it is. We do not have a new release for the Virtual Safe Control SL, and we take the systematic safe software as we have released it. We take that software and integrate it in a so-called CODESYS Safe Control core, which means that in that context, the 2 channels are already separated. They are executed sequentially, one after another, not in parallel. And one channel is executed with coded processing, so to detect hardware and software errors. That safe control core is taken and we put it into the CODESYS Virtual Safe Control SL, which is basically built of standard runtime system components. So the basic idea is that everything that is not safety related is implemented as safe component. We use the technique of mixed critical code. So we use safe code for everything which is not safety related, and the safe runtime toolkit for everything which is related to a safe execution of the safe ISC application, together with the safe protocol stack. The benefit of that is that we can use any standard functionality for our safe runtime, and we are not limited here. So all the communication, logging, diagnosis, all features which you know from standard CODESYS are still available, and we just replace the execution of the application by the execution of a safe ISC application. What product features do we have in that first version? There will be an add-on CODESYS Virtual Safe Control SL, which brings the SL runtime, the safe SL runtime for basically Linux systems. It includes the standard FBs of the standard library, the PC Open safety libraries in version 1.0, and in first version, the CODESYS ProfiSafe host in version 2.6 maintenance update 2. In further versions, we plan to also support FSOE. The IDE, as already mentioned, consists of the safety extension. So from the user experience, from the IDE side, it's exactly the same than if you're using Safe PLC in physics. You have the qualified import of the GSDML file and the easy files, as also already mentioned. And in addition to that, we have the safety user manual, which is actually already coming with the current version. And in addition to that, there will be an additional manual for the virtual safe control. And there we will have all requirements to run the virtual safe control in a safe manner. What's the status of the current implementation? You may already know, we have an approval of the detailed safety concept by the TÜV Süd. This was around end of last year. Right now we are doing the finalizing the remaining components which we have to implement so that everything is ready for certification. And code close is set to end of May at the moment, and release of the virtual safe control SL is planned for end of July.
Thank you very much, Andreas Kehrer. And now to the next presentation.
Hi, I'm Domenik Vögel. I'm product manager for our CODESYS Control SL runtime products. To the Control SL runtime products. I want to first talk about the newly implemented application-based licenses. Afterwards, we're going to take a look at the virtual control, and in the end, we're going to talk about CODESYS Control for Raspberry Pi and CODESYS Control for Linux SL. To better understand the differences to the new model, we quickly want to take a look at our old license model. Here, license prices dependent on the performance of the used hardware. This had the advantage that it was a long proven and easy to understand concept. However, the performance of common hardware has increased rapidly in the last years, and there are now few low performance devices on the market. Complex applications can be run on inexpensive hardware, while at the same time simple applications are operated with unnecessarily expensive licenses on modern hardware. The introduction of the virtual control with several runtime instances on one device can also no longer be mapped with our previous license model. So to sum it up, the license price is dependent on the performance of the used hardware. The new approach looks as follows. License prices are now based on the functionality of the application. Applications are categorized into different performance classes based on suitable features. The metrics that are used are the type and number of Fieldbus instances, the I/O channels, and the code size, for example. Additional functions such as visualization, soft motion, and communication can be purchased separately if required. We see many advantages with this new system. Simple applications are significantly cheaper now, even if they run on powerful hardware, since the license price is independent of the device that is used. The licenses can be extended with additional functions, such as Divisu or soft motion, if this is required. And the upgrade licenses allow you to react flexibly to changes in the application. We think this is a significantly fairer pricing model where you only have to pay for what you actually use, and the license prices also correspond with the real value that is added. The changeover is active since the beginning of this year. Of course, such major changes do not always run smoothly. We have collected much feedback from our customers, and as a reaction, we have adapted the more expensive license categories, so the standard L, performance M, and performance L, now permit more Fieldbus instances, more I/O channels, and additional code size. Next, I want to talk about the virtual control SL. Here we have seen a lot of improvements in the last months. We support now ARM and ARM64 CPUs. The stability and robustness was increased. We now also have a possibility of setting dependencies between different PLC instances, which are also considered when starting and stopping these instances. And of course, we also support the application-based licenses, and at the release, we will also support network licenses. Take a quick look how the new deployed tool looks in the CODESYS development system. So in the first dialog, we can choose the target device and can connect with it via an SSH connection. Afterwards, we can, in a deployment dialog, choose different images which we want to deploy on the device. Afterwards, we can configure the different PLC instances. We can set dependencies to other instances, as I said before. We can set if auto start should happen. The ports can be configured, and also we can choose which Ethernet adapter we want to communicate with out of the container. And then there's another dialog when we can see the status of the different instances and can start and stop the containers. What probably all of you want to know is when is the virtual control released. We plan to release on CODESYS 3.5 Service Pack 20 Patch 1 in the SL version 4.12, which will release on the 26th of June this year. Then to other products, CODESYS Control for Raspberry Pi SL. Here we added more compatibility. We now support also the 64-bit Raspberry Pi OS since version 4.10. And since DSL version 4.11, we also support the Raspberry Pi 5. Currently, still with some but this problem should with SL version 4.12. Control Linux SL also saw improvements and new features. We now support, since SL version 4.10, the communication protocol DNP3, which is frequently used in energy and process technology. And then a quick outlook. We are currently working on SL plugin of a Linux target Viso, which is supposed to release in version 4.12. And we are also currently developing a cockpit-based, web-based management system, which will initially help with the licensing process, especially of the virtual control, where we have an help for the installation of network licenses. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show you what this looks like in the product today, but we will get an overview of these new features in the next feature briefing.
Thank you very much, Domenik Vögel. Now to the next topic, one more time with Bernhard Reiter.
when we talk about communication features in CODESYS, by our definition, we mean protocols which are necessary to be able to have machine-to-machine or machine-to-HMI communication, and also to be able to transport data to higher level systems like SCADA systems, for example. The most important communication stack we have in CODESYS is the OPC UA stack. And in this presentation, I will focus on OPC UA because this is also the topic we will invest most of our time again in the development this year. First of all, the OPC UA server was already compliance tested according to the micro-embedded device profile in the version SP19, which was released last year. But the OPC UA server is capable of a lot more than the micro-embedded device profile would require. So most notably, the number of variables which can be monitored and the number of active subscriptions is very low in the micro-embedded profile, and in the embedded profile it matches much more closely to the actual amount of active variables and subscriptions we can support in CODESYS, because of course also in CODESYS it scales with the capabilities of the hardware. So if you have a small controller, of course you're limited by the controller hardware and resources for the amount of data and subscriptions you can handle, and as you scale the controller hardware, of course also your capabilities for the OPC UA server scale automatically with it. So for SP21, which we will then release in the next year and for which we are developing this year, we plan to actually get the certification for the embedded profile. The most notably new features we have to implement to be able to apply for the certification is the support for data change filters and also for monitoring triggers. These are, besides the certification, also very useful features because it again gives you the possibility to adjust the data monitoring in your OPC UA client more flexibly to your needs without having to change your PSC application every time for this kind of changes. The certification will still be according to the OPC UA version 1.04 standard, mostly because for 1.05 the conformance tests are not yet available for our own in-house evaluation. We will also work on extending our implementation of the alarms and conditions support. So far, CODESYS provides basic support for alarms and conditions, but the implementation is not compliant to the OPC UA specification. So when we apply for the embedded profile certification, our main goal is to also be able to include our alarms and conditions implementation this time as part of the certification, which was not the case when we did the micro-embedded profile certification. And this again will then provide the usage for off-the-shelf HMIs and SCADA systems to also be directly able to work with our alarms and do not have the need to do some kind of special implementation for CODESYS controllers. Some things will also change regarding to the configuration of alarms in this process, because right now, if you want to use the alarm configuration, it requires kind of a few tricks and special knowledge, and it only works with the old symbol configuration editor, which is already basically deprecated and will be discontinued in a few years. So for new applications, you should go with the communication manager and the symbol sets features, and our new or extended compliant alarms and conditions implementation will then be based on the communication manager. It is also important to note here that making our alarms and conditions implementation compliant does not automatically mean that we enable the usage of custom alarm definitions from companion specifications in CODESYS. This is another topic which also requires a lot more work and implementation details on the server side and in the UI of CODESYS. So this is not yet part of this feature development. For now, it's only about being able to have basic alarms which come already predefined in the basic OPC UA specifications and being able to use them in a standard compliant way in CODESYS together with the communication manager and the alarm configurations objects already available in CODESYS. So much about the communication features. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Bernhard Reiter. And now, to the next presentation.
Hello, my name is Stefan Ambros. I'm responsible for the CODESYS visualization. Today, I show you the latest developments in this area. I would like to start with the CODESYS Receipts add-on. From version 4.2, it is possible to create the receipt management via CODESYS scripting. This includes the receipt manager and the receipt definitions. All properties of the receipt manager can be set via scripting. It is also possible to create all contents of a receipt definition. This includes adding variables to the receipt definition and setting additional columns such as names, comments, minimum and maximum values. Any number of recipes can also be created. A complete interface description can be found in the online help. In the example code, the primary project is determined first, the application is searched, and the receipt manager is created or returned from the application. Then a receipt definition with the name recipe-def1 is created for the receipt manager and a variable is added to the variable list of the receipt definition. If you create projects via scripting, this is now also possible for the receipt management. The second topic deals with an extension in the CODESYS visualization support add-on. The text list can now also be used purely in the application. Previously, this was only possible if a visualization was also included in the project. To do this, you can select the Download by Application option on the Text List tab of a text list object in the Object Properties. This is also the new default when a text list is created. Use cases are on the one hand the use of text lists within the alarm configuration for the message text. On the other hand, it is possible to read and use language-specific texts from a text list within the application via the text list utils library. Now we come to the features that will come with the next version of the CODESYS visualization add-on. The first topic is an extension in the trend. The trend element then offers the possibility to set the date range to be displayed in online mode via two IC variables of type LDate and time. These can be specified in the trend element in the control variables properties date range start and date range end. The variables can be set via date time picker within the visualization, or you can edit them with a desired format in an input field. The range can now be set using both the date range picker and the time variables. If the time range is changed using the date range picker, the timestamps in the variables are also adjusted. This also makes it possible to read out the set time range. The second topic in the area of visualization is a new visualization text view. This brings several features with it. One important aspect is to obtain a detailed overview of the tags used in a visualization. If the view is opened from the context menu of a visualization, the visualization is displayed on the top. In this way, each visualization can be viewed individually. If a visualization has a modular structure using frames, this call tree can now be displayed. In the visualization text view, there is a filter field, which can be used for a visualization name as well as for a tag or variable name. The first illustration shows how you can filter according to where a visualization is used. Double-clicking on a row takes you to the visualization and the element. The second illustration shows how to filter by usage locations of a variable. The second topic deals with additional alarm features. One enhancement is the ability to enter a comment when acknowledging an alarm. These entries are also saved in the alarm history so that they can be tracked at any time. In addition, the user ID that performed this acknowledgement is also stored. The next feature is called realarm, and it is described in the ISA 18.2 specification. You can specify a time after which an alarm changes back to the active state if it has been acknowledged but has not yet been resolved after this time. The on-delay feature was already included under the name mint pending time. The off-delay feature will now be added. The diagram shows that the alarm only becomes active after the on-delay time, and the alarm only goes off if the process value remains inactive for longer than the off-delay time. Another feature, auto reset, is available for digital alarms. This is an option in the alarm class. If the option is set, the digital value is automatically resetted after acknowledgement. The last enhancement from the alarm management area is the separation of alarm detection from alarm processing. Alarm detection must be carried out very quickly so that every change to the alarm states can be recognized. The storage of alarms in the history can be carried out in parallel in a slower task. The last topic in my presentation is an extension in the meter element. A second arrow can optionally be displayed in this element. The color can be semi-transparent if needed. The variable value, the arrow type, the color and the length of the arrow can also be configured.
Thank you very much, Stefan Ambros. And now to the next presentation.
Hello, my name is Georg Seidel and I'm product manager for the CODESYS motion products. I'd like to introduce the new features of CODESYS of motion. First, I will talk about the new override for single axis movements, and then I'll give you an outlook about the current development. We implemented the function block mcset_override as defined in the PLC Open for Motion Control Part 1. Using this function block, you can change the velocity, acceleration or jerk of an ongoing movement. I'd like to show you an example using a movement from position 0 to position 100 with an override of 75% of the velocity. In this diagram, you see the position of the drive in the top diagram going from 0 here to 100. Below you see the velocity, the maximum velocity of 100, the acceleration, jerk, and the enable input of the set override. Here the enable input has a rising edge and the override is started and takes effect immediately in the same task cycle. And the effect is to slow down the drive from velocity 100 to velocity 75. Then the movement is continued until it reaches the target position of 100. The override applies to all single axis movements with a few exceptions. MC stop is not affected at all. Similarly, MC position profile, velocity profile, and acceleration profile are not affected. By the way, these function blocks will be deprecated in the future. We recommend to use MC cam in instead. Synchronized movements like cam in, gearing, and phasing are not affected once they are ramped in, because in this state the movement of the slave is determined by the movement of the master. Of course, an override on the master may have an indirect influence on the slave. During ramping in, the override takes an effect on the ramp in movement. MC gear in pause is not affected by the override as the ramping in is distance-based. There are a few important things to have in mind when using the override feature. We recommend not to use ramp type sine square and quadratic smooth. The reason is these ramp types do not behave well when movements are aborted by new movements. These are known issues that may cause an overshoot in the worst case. Overriding such a movement is similar to aborting. Similar effects can occur. We recommend to use ramp type quadratic when using override. It's dangerous to change the acceleration and jerk factor while a movement is going on. This also may lead to a position overshoot. I'll give you an example why this is the case. Again, we have a movement to position 100. We command an acceleration and jerk override to 50% while decelerating to the target position. You can see that we are approaching the target position of 100 and already are decelerating. The acceleration is negative here. And now in this situation we call the override. The allowed acceleration is reduced from a maximum of 1000 to 500. This means that we need to reduce the deceleration. The maximum jerk is reduced from 10,000 to 5,000. So we can do so only using a jerk of 5,000. Together this means that we can decelerate only slowly and will have a position overshoot, crossing the target position of 100, reversing the drive and approaching the target position from the other direction. And of course, this can be dangerous on a real machine. Now I want to give you an outlook about our current developments. We are very much focusing on improving the MC cam in function block. First, we are implementing distance-based ramping in, with the inputs master start distance and master sync position. This allows to command a ramp in that should be finished at a given master position. We are creating an API for creating cam tables from the PLC. This is possible right now by filling our internal data structures. We will provide an API that makes this much more convenient and efficient. We plan to introduce more cam segment types. Right now we have polynomials of degree 5 and lines, and we want to introduce polynomials of degree 7, as well as inclined and modified sine segments. And last but not least, we want to improve on the tappets, especially on the timing accuracy. Right now they are cycle accurate, so if you have a 4 millisecond task cycle, you know that a tappet will switch in the upcoming 4 milliseconds. And we want to improve this to have a sub-cycle accuracy of much below 1 microsecond, which makes it possible to control high accuracy outputs with these tappets. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Georg Seidel. Now to the next topic, one more time with Hilmar Panzer.
In the field buses and devices area, I would first like to point out a general performance improvement when changing tabs in the device editor. This comes with Service Pack 20. Our Modbus library will shortly receive an update containing various bug fixes and minor improvements. We will be working on CAN-FD in this year, but only for the CODESYS communication protocol. That means communication between the programming system and the runtime. There are no plans yet to support FD in our CAN-Open solution. There was a new CAN-Open version 4.2 in last September, which mainly contained bug fixes. We have also been working intensively on Profinet. In addition to patch 4.4.1 with an important bug fix in January, we will soon be releasing version 4.5. This will also contain bug fixes and several improvements. TCI in the safety area should be mentioned here in particular. This allows you to call up external tools provided by the device manufacturer. These tools connect to the ProfiSafe device via our Profinet stack and enable safe parameterization. In general, the new version will contain the necessary requirements for ProfiSafe 2.6. Further versions are planned for the second half of the year, including certification for virtual controllers, as soon as this has been defined by the P&O. And in the area of redundancy, the focus is on S2 redundancy. In April, we plan to release a new I/O link version that includes a gateway interface. This will allow external tools to read and write I/O link parameters. Ethernet IP will be released in summer as version 4.6. This will pass the conformance test 20. The connection API is also on the agenda, which provides access to the status and other properties of the connections. Numerous improvements and bug fixes are included as well, which will ensure greater stability. Of course, corrections and minor enhancements have also been made to EtherCAT. These will be rolled out shortly with version 4.7. Finally, a discontinuation. We already moved Cercos 3 to the service phase last year and will officially discontinue it in the next few days.
Thank you very much, Hilmar Panzer. And now, to the next presentation.
Hello, I'm Kevin Ketterle. Today I'm speaking in my role as Product Manager of CODESYS Go. This is the new web-based programming system which will be available soon. And what soon actually means, stay tuned.
In this very short presentation, I would like to show what we have achieved so far, what we are currently working on, and where we want to be at the end of this year. Platform independence is an important feature of CODESYS Go. I have listed the possible deployment scenarios on the slide. As things stand today, we have an architecture that supports all the deployment variants listed. The on-prem client-server variant and the variant on the controller, namely a Raspberry Pi, are actually running in the daily test environment. The library concept is largely complete. CODESYS Go projects can use the proven and existing library landscape. We have made changes such that the resolved library dependency tree is stored in a separate file. On the one hand, this improves performance when opening and compiling projects and, on the other hand, leads to a stable build result independent of the library repository. As in other aspects of Go, these operations can be called up via the command line. CODESYS Go uses the text editor from Visual Studio Code and therefore plays in the top league. Many features that support everyday coding work are available in general and will be adapted to the specifics of structured text in the coming months, be it code completion, folding, semantic syntax highlighting, column-by-column editing, code navigation, and much more. Currently, our main focus is on device configuration. We will use Fieldbus-specific text files for configuration, mainly in JSON format. This allows certain aspects to be clearly expressed in a format that can also be edited and understood without a graphical configuration interface. We will also convert the I/O mapping and PLC settings into a human and machine-friendly format. Under the hood, much will remain the same, so we will use existing device descriptions and Fieldbus stacks. As a first proof of concept, we want to address the GPIOs of a Raspberry Pi and have already achieved initial success here. In future, settings can be made in CODESYS Go at installation, workspace, user or project level, naturally again in the form of comprehensible textual and versional files. You also want to be able to arrange editors and views in the browser. These and similar tasks fall within the scope of an editor and view host, which we are continuously expanding and improving. This is an interactive editor for the settings just mentioned, and I have already mentioned the ongoing development of our ST editor. CODESYS Go will be extensible through add-ons. As we are dealing with completely different technologies here, especially in the front-end area, than we have been used to in the past, and the division into a front-end and a back-end also creates new challenges, we are currently trying to shed light on the situation and pave our way there step by step. By the end of this year, we will be pursuing two main goals with regard to CODESYS Go. We want to reach a stage where it is possible to program and configure a controller with EtherCAT and structured text. With this milestone, we will also be targeting pilot users. CODESYS Go should be excellently suited for operation in a CI/CD pipeline. Therefore, one of our global company goals is to prove this. A version 3 add-on is to be released in which the library parts are built in the pipeline using CODESYS Go. This experience will help us to continue developing in the right direction.
Thank you, Kevin. Dear audience, that was all for today. Thanks for your time and for your interest. I hope you enjoyed it. We had several friendly posts in the chat, but no real questions that we should answer now. Therefore, I think I can close this meeting. Once again, thank you and see you next time, latest in October. Have a nice time. Goodbye.